and welcome to episode 71 of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who's running with me tonight?
Stefan JD.
Slow runner, Stuart Hughes.
Blake, aka Abomination 1212.
Yes, who was on the show back in Clock Tower episode.
I think that was like last October.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A million years ago.
Yeah.
It was a while ago.
Back in the before times, the simpler times.
Yeah.
Back when we could go outside, but we chose to stay in playing video games.
Yeah.
I still choose to stay inside playing video games no matter what. That hasn't changed at all. But we're doing a little bit special episode this time. This episode's gonna be all about speed running, and we're gonna be kind of talking with Blake, who is a speedrunner, who's known in the Overblood group, and he's ran a few different games. So that's what we're gonna be talking about this episode. It's gonna be a little different than our normal episodes, but it's something that we all, even though I can't speedrun for the life of me, nor will I ever, I do like it. I think it's cool, but no fucking way. But first I want to ask, so Blake, what got you into speedrunning?
It was actually, I forget what year it was. I don't even know how I stumbled on it. It was a GDQ video. It had to have been from like 2014. So it was like still when GDQ was like pretty low profile. But it was with some guy. I don't even know the runner anymore. Like I'd have to go back and try and find it. But it was of a runner doing Resident Evil 2 Classic. And like I watched it and I was like, you know what? I can do that. And that's basically how I started.
Okay.
So you eventually did end up speedrunning Resident Evil 2. Can you tell us, like, what do you have to go through to even come close to touching the world record for that game?
I guess it depends what category, but Leon A, which is the main category, I don't even know if that's beatable at this point. Like it's so completely optimized. Secret, who is an amazing runner, he literally grinded out rooms. He just practiced single rooms for hours to get the perfect line, and like his time is of 48 minutes and 44 seconds.
Good Lord.
Wow.
That's on PC version, which it's faster because you can skip door loads.
Yeah.
But still,
You're
regardless.
49 minutes and 55 seconds, it looks like, for yours.
Yeah, my only goal was really getting a sub 50 for Leon. I think Leon A is a really boring category. The main one I ran was Leon B, which is a lot more difficult and a lot more RNG heavy.
It's a weird episode for me because I knew so little about speedrunning. I was never, for the longest time, I wasn't really interested in it. And just like trying to, I think like last year at some point, I just started diving into it and kind of researching it. And like, I didn't even realize that there were different categories to begin with.
Yeah,
I think assumed it was just, beat the game as quick as possible. I didn't realize there was like completely different categories for like breaking the game versus beating the game as it was meant to be beaten.
Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about speedrunning, I find, especially if you go into like YouTube comments and people are like, you cheated, this isn't how you really beat the game. But it's like there's so many different types of speedruns, and like my favorite comment I've seen is I was actually just kind of lurking in somebody's Twitch chat. So I don't know if you guys know, but if you get to endgame of Final Fantasy IX in under 12 hours, you unlock the best weapon in the game.
Caliber 2.
Yeah, obviously we use it for the speed run. I mean, why not? It's there.
Yeah.
But there was literally some guy who was like, yeah, I don't like those Final Fantasy IX speedrunners. All they do, they just speedrun it so they can get Excalibur 2. And it's like, oh my God.
I mean, you would never. I remember when I was a kid, when I played Final Fantasy, I remember looking up and I saw that sword. I'm like, how the fuck do you get to that point in the game that quickly? Like, I can't remember what it is, but it's short. You don't have a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, you have to get to you have to beat the fourth to last boss within 12 hours. And then there's a pillar where there's an item that appears.
Yeah, that was
You're
definitely
not going to do that.
That was me when we did our episode on Stalker Shadow of Chernobyl, because I was looking at Mike was like, how quick can you beat this game? And I was like, let me look up some speed runs of it and just see. I saw people were beating it in like 17 minutes. I was like, fucking how is it like even possible? And watching the video, yeah, they were glitching out of the map, which I was like, I'm fine with that. And then they got to the end and I was like, they seem to have like God mode on, and I don't know how I feel about that. And somebody had to eventually I was talking to somebody about it and they explained to me, they were like, the point is just to get to the end of the game, and it's a different category too. Like, it doesn't matter how it's done. If you could just feasibly get to that end screen, aside from like just going in and typing out, like, in the console commands, like enter quest so-and-so, finish. I was like, oh yeah. It's like, I get it now.
Yeah, like glitch categories. I used to, before I started speedrunning, I was in that boat where I was like, this is so stupid. Why would you, like, you're skipping the entire game? But like, I've come to realize it's just a different way to play. Like, it's the same thing with like people say it's about Final Fantasy 9 also, where it's like, well, you miss half the game, and it's like, sure, but like I've already done that so many times. It's just a different way to play.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I could see that. I know when I get the platinum trophies for Resident Evil game, Capcom always has some arbitrary time you have to beat it under, and I always think like, how am I going to get through this game in under 2 hours? It just feels impossible. But after a while, you just learn all the tricks, and I assume speedrunning's the same.
Yeah, and I mean, Resident Evil, especially when you think about it, has always been like a speed-driven game.
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the first games to have a timer at the end to show you a broken timer that isn't accurate, but a timer nonetheless that showed you, you know, what your at least your in-game time, and I say that in air quotes because I think even the in-game time is wrong. Like,
yeah, I agree.
I mean, you're someone that would know because you ran a bunch of because looking at your stats, you ran a bunch of the Resident Evil games, so you would know that the timer is not correct.
Yeah, I mean, we use what's called an auto splitter. So I think with all of them that I ran, it actually split after every room, which is really good for like if you want to analyze your run and see, you know, you can go down to, you know, tenths, hundreds of seconds because you can see each room by room, seeing where you're gaining and losing time.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me, like how much the community goes into like just the code of the game and getting it down to a literal science of like this angle matters. If you're looking this way as opposed to this way, you can shave off just a second.
Oh, Final Fantasy, the whole series in general is like that. There's so much data. I think that's why I like it. I really like analyzing things and, you know, trying to constantly learn new things, which you always have to with Final Fantasy 9. Like that game is all about adapting because it's not like Final Fantasy 7 where there's a step count and you can avoid encounters. There's nothing like that. So you're basically it's partially like a gambling addiction because, you know, every run's going to be different. You never know when you're going to get encounters, and you're risking, you know, YOLO a lot, which is just basically like if you screw it up, you're pretty much dead. But yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting run.
Yeah, I remember watching one of a guy playing Ocarina of Time, and like the boss glitched and spawned a second late, and he was just started like hyperventilating and like losing his mind. It's just like, I can't, like, it spawned a second late, it ruined my run.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that seems like so much stress.
Yeah, I mean, that I would never be like that, but like yesterday I was having some hardware issues and like I probably lost 30 to 40 seconds to loads. I mean, granted, my run died, but it was still annoying. Yeah.
So I had a quick question. You also, one of the other games you did was Super Ghosts and Goblins, or Super Ghouls and Goblins.
Super Ghouls and Ghosts, yeah.
Yeah, and
one of them games.
Yeah, one of the. But how? So when you started that, like, because it's obviously a freaking difficult ass game. Like, how do you go into that at the beginning? Do you just automatically start looking at what other people are doing, or do you figure it out yourself? Like, what's the step process?
I mean, that game, I just started playing casually. Like, I had seen somebody else play it and I thought it looked like a lot of fun. So I started playing it casually and I ended up beating it on professional or whatever the hardest difficulty is with the default amount of continues. And I was like, I could probably speed run this. And I mean, that game is brutal. I can't really think of anything that's too RNG heavy in that game, but like just in general, it's just enemy placement can be really brutal and you have to be precise. That I prefer the more RNG heavy speedruns just because it's different every time.
And for those that don't know, RNG is random number generator, anything in a game that doesn't happen every time or happens to certain things, or it can change, which until I started watching speedruns, I didn't realize how many games have random patterns built in, especially Super Nintendo games, for example. Because I never cared, because I'd play through a game once, okay, he does a couple different things. I don't realize it because I only beat him once, I move on, I'm done with the game. But when I watch speedruns and I've seen what people do, it's like, I mean, they know all the patterns. They can tell you when something different, and it's just such an interesting to break down a game that people love and to see everything about it. Because like with you in Final Fantasy IX, I'm sure you know a lot more about that game than I ever will at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I enjoy about streaming on Twitch is, as long as it's not like kind of I don't want to say dumb question, but a question that is like, I don't know, easily learned or answered by just a quick search or something. Like I get a lot of questions about like equipment, which is fine. Like I don't mind explaining it, but like some people ask why you don't go out of your way to get this, and the answer is just simply because it's faster not to. Like it shouldn't be.
I don't think some people understand what speedruns are. Like, I mean, I know until I started watching Awesome Games Done Quick that we kind of referenced AGDQ earlier, which is a fundraiser. And like the way that people play games, like, I mean, there's certain things that I would always do in a game if I played through it. And they're like, no, we don't got time for that. Like everything is, how can you shave every second off this game to play it as perfectly as you can? I mean, it's such an interesting world what people do with speedrun.
Yeah, I guess that's fair. I mean, and like I said, I really don't mind, but if it becomes egregious and you ask a lot and I'm trying to concentrate, that I'll normally just like say look it up or something, or luckily the community is really great and they'll try to explain things also. But yeah, I mean, sometimes like that run is very high stress towards the end because you have large menus. You've been running for, it starts getting really stressful around the 6.5, 7 hour mark, because there's the section which is dubbed the gauntlet that like can really make or break your run.
Right. I remember being like, the community aspect of it is so interesting to me, because I remember watching a long time ago, somebody made a video about like the Wind Waker speedrun and like Hyrule Castle that you have to get through, and if you can glitch your way through it, it would cut off like 2 hours of your time.
Oh yeah,
for a 5-hour run.
Yeah, I think I've seen that video, and they ended up doing it.
Yeah, just the community aspect of everyone coming together to be like, all right, let's figure this out. Let's find out exactly how, like, and somebody solved it, and everyone was like, oh, that's fake. Like, there's no way you solved it, and somebody recreated it, and then the original guy went back and like logged his controls while he was doing it, and everyone was like, oh my god, this has changed the way this game is run.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's fascinating, man. It breaks certain games. Like I know I've seen some fear like the Ocarina of Time run. I mean, that's like if you watch the glitch run, I mean, they glitched that entire game. And I personally don't like watching glitch runs. I like watching a run where they play through the entire game just very, very quickly and perfectly. Those are more fun to me.
I tend to agree, especially with Ocarina of Time. So I think the category you're talking about is called ACE. I forget what it stands. It's an acronym. It stands for something, but basically they just manipulate the RAM values of the game to warp them straight to the credits from the initial starting village. And it's just like, it just looks like a bunch of random movements they're making, but they know what they're doing. Like it's not for me. I don't think it's very viewer friendly either, because it's so technical that it'd be almost impossible to explain it. But I mean, if that's how they want to play the game, that's, whatever, more power to them.
It's like speedrunning for the best speedrunners. You can watch it go.
I mean...
How did they do that? I can't see what's happening on screen, but I understand essentially what's going on right now.
Like for Ocarina of Time, the fastest glitchless time is 3 hours and 44 minutes and 3 seconds, but the fastest any percent time, this is for the 3DS version, is 29 minutes and 10 seconds.
Yeah.
This is for the version that's been patched, where they can't do as many things as they can in the regular N64 version. I think has more glitches.
Yeah, Ocarina of Time is notoriously broken. Like pretty much, I would say most of those big N64 games are notoriously broken. Mario 64.
7 minutes, 34 seconds, and 806 milliseconds is the record.
Yeah,
it's shocking to me how many people go like they find like, okay, we're gonna play like the Japanese version of this game because like the dialogue can be skipped slightly faster. And
yeah, I mean that's what
seconds add up.
That's what we did with. I mean, pretty much all the RE games. Well, the classic ones, anyways, are in Japanese. I think RE3 for PC is the Taiwanese version,
which is not what I expected. I'm looking at your Twitch or speedrun.com page, and I'm like, China. You're playing the Chinese version for that, where everything else is Japanese.
Yeah. I don't. RE3 is. if I ever went back and ran Resident Evil, it'd be that game, because that game is very RNG heavy.
It's also a really good game. Like when we went and played Resident Evil 3 not that long ago, I was surprised, and now I was really surprised how much fun that game actually is. I mean, it is creepy and it is kind of tough, but it's a cool game.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed. I believe I listened to that about half that, and then I don't know what happened, but I don't know if you guys touched on this, but like depending, like there's random seeds of the game, so like I'm sure you guys noticed this, but you know, some of you guys might have gotten dogs in an area.
Yeah.
And
I think that actually did happen.
Another person got zombies.
Yeah, I think we actually got like different enemies altogether at some point.
Yeah. So like that game, you have to memorize pretty much all that.
Is that based on a timer, or how does that work?
It's just random. I think it's just like a random seed generation, which a seed is just like, I don't even know how to describe it.
It's like just you start the game and it puts you in like this monster spawning pattern.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, that's crazy to be able to like say like okay, I've started the game and I see that there's a zombie. There are like two zombies where there's sometimes one. I know I'm in this seat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that actually that like brings up. I always wondered about this. So since you speedrun those games, can you go back and still enjoy those games personally? Because I know I used to do tournaments for Left 4 Dead, and it became more difficult for me to actually enjoy playing that game at a certain point because I just was focused on being better at it. And so I would start playing with other people randomly, and I'm like, you're not my team. You're not like fast like my team is.
Resident Evil specifically, I don't think I might not ever even touch those games again. I just part of the reason I stopped running them was I just became so burnt out on them.
Yeah.
And like, so I haven't played any of the classic Resident Evil games for at least a year.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
Yeah.
But like FF9, that's my favorite game of all time. So like, I don't know, I could always play that game. People, I get frustrated because I mean, there's that RNG element, as I said, so it can be very frustrating. And people are like, well, why don't you take a break? And it's like, well, I'm not burnt out on the game. I'm not tired of playing it or anything. It's just,
plus I feel like if you stop playing something, you're gonna lose that muscle memory and that memory of all these. I mean, because I feel like with speedrunning, it's lots of little things you have to keep track of that you have to have in your head, and by constantly grinding out runs and playing the game, you know, all the time. I mean, I'm assuming that if you take a break, it's not gonna help.
yeah, I mean, breaks do help. I mean, it's like with learning anything, you know, you're not going to memorize it day one. Typically, you need at least a night of sleep to memorize things, because that's just how the brain works.
Mhm.
But I mean, with Final Fantasy IX, the big thing is just memorizing menus. And there's the I think the misconception with Final Fantasy IX in particular is that a lot of people think that it's all luck, and it's not. Like sub 9 is like the gold standard for that game, sub 9 hours. And a lot of people think it's just all luck to get that. And there's honestly, I am convinced that if you grind it out enough, if you practice enough, you can get a sub 9 hour run. It's just a matter of memorizing, enemy attacks and just all the small things that really add up more than you would think they would.
Because right now, as of this recording, 5/17/2020, you're number 6 to Final Fantasy IX in the any percent run.
Yeah, I'm actually grinding for world record right now,
which is pretty damn. Pretty damn impressive. Like I can't remember. I haven't played Final Fantasy IX since 2004 or something. Maybe was the last time I played it. So I have like very little memory of that game, but I remember that game is long. Like it is not a short game.
So you're number 6. Can you tell everyone like how many times you've gone through it just to get to number 6 so far, or do you know?
Well, I got 6th place 3 months ago, but I probably, in terms of resets, and this is counting, so you have to steal an item on the very first battle of the game, the very first force battle. Mm-hmm. If you don't get it within it, I normally give it 4 minutes in real time. If I don't get it by then, I just reset. So counting that, probably around 500, I'd be willing to say.
Oh, wow.
What would you say do you have what's the latest time you've had into a game where you've said, I'm just going to reset? Have you ever been 2 hours in and you're like, I'm just going to start over?
That's pretty common for me. The latest I've ever been is like 5.5 hours, and
Oh man,
more than halfway done with the game.
Oh god. Yes. See, I now view speedrunners as like basically like marathon runners, where someone's like when you get frustrated and people are like, stop playing the game. It's like telling a marathon runner, it's like, just stop running. It's like, no, that's not the point of this.
Yeah, that's what I basically, when people tell me to just take a break, that's like, I don't want to.
I mean, like, I got one question I do have, like, for running an RPG, like, because I mean, even like I'm looking at these times, a lot of these times are, let's say, the 10 hours, 11 hours, a lot are in 11 hours, like, to run. I mean, that is like got to be like a whole day run. I mean, well, it is a whole day. I mean, what am I saying? But that's got to be a daunting task to accept that. Like, okay, I'm going to run this game. Like, I'm going to run a game that's going to be me sitting here for 10 hours learning it.
I think the big thing is, at least for me, is that I have Twitch chat, which is, I like interacting with them and talking to them. I consider a lot of them my friends. So that helps a lot. Like, I could not run this game offline. It just would be so boring to me. Not that I don't love the game, but like, I think that the Twitch experience has just become a part of it that, like, I couldn't do it any other way.
Yeah.
But in general, yeah, you do need to, you do need to be willing to sacrifice with this game. Once you get to a decent play level, at least 9 to 9.5 hours. You need to be able to set that aside. So I understand it's not for everyone. I think Final Fantasy IX is actually probably the most ran in the series, at least for the PS1 games.
wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
9 is one of the best PS1. I mean, I really like 8, but I haven't touched it since it came out, so I don't know how I'm ever going to feel about it when I play it again, but I do remember having very fond memories of Final Fantasy 9. I remember that being regarded as a very good game at the time and held up as time passed.
I think it has the highest Metacritic score. Not that that's, the perfect way to measure things, but I think it has, in the series, has the highest
general consensus.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's highly regarded as a good. I mean, it's highly regarded as a good game. It is a good game.
I've played a number of them. The only one I've beaten, actually managed to get to the end of. Not that I didn't enjoy the ones I played, but the only one I managed to get to the end of is like Final Fantasy 15. And I'm trying to imagine what a speed run of that game would even look like.
I'm actually not too familiar with the speed run for that game. I'm sure there's some skip. I'm not a big fan of Final Fantasy 15, admittedly. So.
Oh no, it's definitely not for everybody. That's why people are like, what's your favorite? I'm like, I like this one.
I think 15.
Specifically,
and this isn't a knock against.
It almost feels like a parody.
Yeah, I think 15, and this isn't a knock against anyone who loves it. 15 is the perfect Final Fantasy game for the casual, like somebody who's never been into Final Fantasy.
I would agree with that. As I love it, and I would absolutely agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here the funny thing is though, the speed run record for Final Fantasy 15 is under 4 hours, 3 hours and 59 minutes.
I don't see how that's even possible because you get over leveled so fast. So that there's got to be some work. I don't even know.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of funny though to me. Like,
I'll have to watch that.
When we look at like Final Fantasy 9, the number one time is 8 hours and 39 minutes, and then you look at like a game that just came out that long ago, that's made much differently, still a Final Fantasy game, that much shorter.
Well, the big thing is you can skip cutscenes in
Mhm.
Final Fantasy 15.
Yeah,
That's
you
true.
can't skip them in 9.
Yeah, you can't skip the FMVs, which are, the full motion video with the really pretty graphics that everybody was wowed with back when it came out and still look great, in my opinion. And then the cutscenes are like when you just have to mash through text.
I'm trying even in that game, you even have to you have to run until you get the car working. And even when you get the car working, you're not allowed to drive it until later in the game. So just traveling, I imagine, is such a detriment.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like I said, I'm sure there's some big skips for that game.
It's just somehow, I guess New Game Plus is one. Just getting somehow getting the chocobos early if possible. I don't know.
Like Final Fantasy VII Remake, they've already found you can skip from chapter 7 to chapter 13 or something crazy like that.
Oh.
I've always been just astonished. Every time before we play a game for the show, a lot of times I will, especially Resident Evil games, I will always watch a Resident Evil speed run before I play the game, just so I kind of know what I'm going into, because I'm a scaredy cat of Resident Evil games. I don't like them. And I picked these two guys to co-host a podcast with me without knowing that, and like I always have. I love watching just so that way I know what I'm going into. And when I watch these Resident Evil speedruns, like it is because Resident Evil is a game that I feel completely makes sense for speedrun. Like as Stefan had mentioned earlier, you know, you have a built-in reason to speedrun because of platinum trophies, and it's just like to me. Those games are so impressive to watch somebody play because I mean you'll see like really dumb things that people do that somehow save time, like in the way that people dodge zombies and everything. It is so impressive. So if you watch Resident Evil speedruns,
yeah, I mean those games have always incentivized going fast because there's always been unlocks. Like the first one, I forget what the time was. It was probably like under 3 hours or something. You would get the infinite ammo rocket launcher. So.
Mm-hmm. I know in RE3, one of the things that a lot of speedrunners do as well is to get Nemesis in the beginning at the police station. They like glitch him to where he's stuck on a little corner of something, and they just unload on him to get the key or the key card from Brad.
Glitch
for classic, yeah. So one of my favorite category is knife only Nemi percent, which is you only use the knife, but you have to kill or not kill, but beat him every time just with the knife. And yeah, there's a lot of geometry in the older games that you can just get him stuck on because he's so big. But I think it's really funny watching that run.
There's only four people that have it listed on speedrun.com for knife nemesis percent.
Yeah, I've done it casually just to do it, say I did it, and honestly, I wouldn't mind going back to that category and like actually running it.
I think my favorite is my favorite one I've ever heard about is there was like a joke one someone did for Mirror's Edge where they speedrun the game by playing it like 25 times in a row and speedrunning it that way. I think like they even said like no one will ever beat this because no one is dumb enough to try it.
I've got a buddy. His name is Spriven on Twitch. He speedruns Castlevania games, but there was one day where he set out to beat it 100 times in a row.
Oh my god!
I don't know if he did it, but he got crazy far into it. Like at least 24 hours he was streaming that.
That's dedication.
I don't know how people. I mean, I give all runners credit for what they do because I could never do it. I mean, my favorite game of all time is Chrono Trigger, and I've watched runs of that and been impressed, but no fucking way.
Yeah, I've got a buddy that learned that run. That's just a really good run in general. It's also shorter, so if anybody's interested in learning an RPG speedrun, that's probably a good one to start with.
What gets me is people like picking games that essentially don't have like plots to them and saying I'm gonna like when people like speedrun to Minecraft. I know that's actually like a big one. I'm always like, how do you even? What's the goal of getting to the what's the end of Minecraft?
I think it's just the Ender Dragon, but yeah, I would never speedrun a game like that personally. But like I said, to each their own. It's just a different way to play it.
And like another thing that we should mention for speedruns, like if a game comes out on a different system, like Minecraft, for example, you have Minecraft Bedrock Edition, Minecraft Java Edition. I have no idea what those mean. Someone does. And each one is broken down into its own game with its own categories for speedrun. Yeah. Like lots of people have any percent, which is just get to the end of the game. You'll have 100%, which is whatever, how the community kind of decides, like, okay, you grab all these items and these count for 100% and these items don't count because they're consumables. Like they find a way to, and that's how different things are broken down in a run. And then they'll rate people whoever has the top speed in each different category.
Yeah, I mean, each category is basically determined by community, but a lot of communities do that just to make it, to a certain degree, for a lot of time, it's very minimal. Speedruns are, in a way, pay to win. I'm not saying that, you can, obviously, if you want a world record, you have to really put a lot of time into it, but like I'll just use Final Fantasy IX as an example. So if you're running it on like one of the old fat PS2s, your times are going to be slower because load times are slower, even with turning on fast disk speed. The way to get the fastest loads is either to run on a 90K model or I believe a 70K model of a PS2, just because it loads faster.
Right. I imagine even with PC runs, it's like you want to make sure you have ideally like the best hardware you can for some games. It's like I imagine Final Fantasies in particular, like you want to make sure you have way more memory than is necessary just so the game is loading like instantly as much as it can.
Well, for PC it's actually kind of nice because a lot of them they they're able to use auto splitters on PC, which will, split at certain times automatically. You don't have to push a button or anything, but the auto splitters will actually remove the load times from the timer. So load times for a lot of PC games they don't even matter. But like for Resident Evil 2, the new one, it's one of the reasons why I really hated that run is because the knife damage is tied to frame rate. So if you have a higher frame rate, you're going to do more damage with the knife. Right?
That's awesome.
Sense. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, that one is, some runs are more pay to win than others, I guess. Like Resident Evil 2, I would consider more pay to win. Not to take away from any of the top runners, because obviously there's a lot of skill involved.
I wouldn't call that pay to win. But I know where you're coming from, because it's more of you have to have like that's another thing that's so interesting about speedrunning to me is for a while I used to watch an Awesome Games Done quick video, or at least I would like watch parts of the video every night before bed for some reason. That was my thing to help me fall asleep. And I learned so much, like how you have, like what you're saying, you have to play in certain models of a system work better, or a certain version works better. It's very interesting to me.
Yeah, it's not really pay to win, I guess. It's more of barrier to entry.
Yeah,
I think is a more accurate term for it.
Pay to win is more like Clash of Clans. Fuck that mobile game.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, you have to pay more to, obviously get a better system sometimes, or better PC. But yeah, I mean, it's just a barrier to entry thing. It's the same reason why like Turbo is listed separately. One of the reasons why it's listed separately from any percent for Final Fantasy IX, because you need to have a Turbo controller, and not everybody wants to go out and buy one.
Yeah, that actually harkens back to the old days of when people used to have to set up like a video camera in front of their TV to record their speed run.
Yeah.
And now, because of the advance of technology, we can actually just watch somebody from anywhere in the world and just watch them do it.
Yeah. It's crazy how far it's come.
Yeah.
That is funny. I forgot about that. Where you did had the videotape recorder set up, and then they check it to make sure it wasn't edited, or you switched out the arcade boards or anything. Make sure you didn't do that to get the high score.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that asshole.
It's not speedrunning, but yeah. Well, he better sue us. We better be careful.
Yeah, he might sue us.
Oh god, but. That's all. I never got into high scores either. That's something I could never chase and never had any interest in.
Yeah, high school is the same for me. I mean, it's like a cousin to speedrunning, but I don't know. It's just can never do that.
Yeah, it seems to be totally like, that's another thing I like about it too, is it's totally up to like people who essentially just are deciding to play the game the way they want to play it, which is always interesting. Like, you're like, yeah, I can enjoy this game the way it was meant to be enjoyed, or I can try to be like the best in the world at beating it.
Yeah, that's why like it always annoys me when people make stupid comments on YouTube, like that somebody's cheating, or like it's a dumb way to play it. It's like, well, then you play it how you want to play it. Like,
yeah,
it's just because they're playing it one way doesn't mean it has to take away from your enjoyment of the game. It's the same argument for like an easy mode in like Dark Souls.
Mm-hmm.
There's no wrong way to play a game as long as you're having fun. Like, for example, if you're playing a game named Stalker because one of your co-hosts is an asshole, and you get to a point where you want to find a way to put a cheat in, you don't take any damage, there's nothing wrong if you play the game.
Oh, wow.
I couldn't find it. I tried and tried. We'll talk about that next week. But
I assumed you wouldn't be able to, because I was like looking into that before, and I was like, Mike doesn't know how to mod. It'll be fine.
No, I was trying. I was really trying, but I mean, I always hated that whole thing. Like, any way you enjoy a game, that's all that matters. Games are just meant to be fun. Like, I mean, I would never speedrun because I just don't have the patience and the persistence to play one game over and over again. I just force myself to finish a game and I move on. But that's always been me. Like, I give all speedrunners top credit for what they, to be able to be that passionate about a certain game and really push it to its limit.
Yeah,
retro speedrunning is great because it helps you save money too.
Yeah.
if you already have the game in the console, like,
it's funny.
Like, I still buy new games, but like I haven't even played Final Fantasy VII yet, just because I'm waiting for it to go down in price because I'm too busy with this.
It's always funny to me too how it's like, yeah, it's a great way to save money. It's also a great way to raise money. Like, I'm shocked at how I wonder like the first people who were like speedrunning games had any idea Like one day people will be dumping a shitload of donations into this for charities.
Yeah, GDQ does great work with that.
I love watching GDQ. Like, it is something. I mean, it's funny when because it's all on YouTube. Awesome Games Done Quick, where they raise money every year, twice a year for one is for Doctor Without Borders and one is for cancer. And like, if you look at the early ones, they're just a couple guys in one little room sitting on a couch.
It started in some guy's basement. Mike, I forget his last name, Mike something, but yeah, he just started in his basement and now it's huge.
I like that. It's like there's a point in time where you can be watching speed runs where it hasn't quite gotten to the level it has today, where it's like we managed to get out of the basement and now we're in like a movie theater that we rented out for the day.
I mean, it's convention center. It was actually one of them. I want to say recently, maybe it was a Summer Games Done Quick. I'm looking right now. Yeah, one of them, a couple of them recently, 4 times was in Minneapolis, and I had thought about going. I had really like, I should.
Yeah, Summer Games Done Quick is always in Minneapolis, so like this year it's being delayed. I wouldn't be surprised with how things are going if it was just turned into online only. But yeah, I mean, it's open to the general public. If you guys want to buy a ticket, you're more than welcome to go.
Yeah, that would actually be interesting. There's something special about it too. I actually, one of my favorite speedrunners for Resident Evil is Carcinogen. And it's funny that his name's Carcinogen and he's raising money to cure cancer. But it's always interesting to see a room light up when somebody shows something specific about a game that they'd never seen before in speedrunning, which I'm sure when you play the games, it's got to be awesome just to get through something special, like some trick in a game or something you do.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, the route I'm running just changed. Like, I just changed routes, so this route is, in my opinion, a little more flashy in some ways. But yeah, I mean, like, it's a lot of fun running this new route because literally nobody else runs this route. So it's fun explaining things, and like, I take a lot more risks, so that adds to the excitement factor. I mean, you have to if you're going for a top time.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I like that. And also, like, I like that it also like created like the opposite effect where people now do games done slow as well, which just just them like just playing the game normally. It's like, oh, we're gonna call it games done slow. It's like, isn't that just how you're supposed to play the game?
Yeah, and then there's the awful games done quick segment, which is always funny.
I have seen some amazing games that I really want to track down and play in awful games done quick.
Dude, bad games are my favorite. Like, I don't know. I'm trying to.
I see that. One of your records on here is Super Caesar's Palace for Super Nintendo.
Oh, that game. So here's how that speed run starts. You start the timer when you put in your name in the name, whatever screen, and then you just walk out of the casino and that's it.
That's beating the game?
Yep. They consider that beaten because it goes to the credits. So I mean, technically you beat it.
I like how that would also technically work with like a game like Indigo Prophecy, where every time you die, it just pretends that that's like one of the ending stories is like, and that's how I died, and that's the end of my story and the end of the game. It's like you just die within 5 minutes.
Just to play it now, just to beat it. Like, oh, I beat Super Caesar's Palace.
Oh yeah, I mean, anybody can speed. You guys should speed run that game.
I thought about
walk out.
I want to get back into, because when we played Left 4 Dead, like I said, we got it down to such a science that we could get to the end of the campaign in like about half an hour, which I my memory of it is a half an hour, but I looked at like speedrun records for it and they're like 40 minutes. So I'm like, I wonder if my memory is wrong or if we were just better than we thought we were. But I want to get back into like speedrunning that game. I've talked to a couple friends. I'm like, I want to try to beat my old time. I want to try to like get to, if I could like shave it down as much as I could.
Yeah, I mean, you should. The Left 4 Dead community is actually pretty big, from what I can tell.
Of me coming back to the community after like 10 years of not playing the game, being like, I'm back, bitches. Let's play No Mercy.
You're gonna find yourself a lot rustier than you used to be.
Oh God, no, yeah, I've played similar games, and I've gone back and like every now and then I'll go back in and just do like I'll just like play on expert by myself. It's just like trying to like see how badly I've faltered from where I used to be. But I'm like, I kind of want to. I feel like I'm getting to a point now, which I'm only 26. I'm not fucking old, but I'm getting to a point now where I can definitely feel myself like slowing down in games.
Wait till you hit your 30s.
Yeah. So I want to like. I think that's like my goal is before I'm 30. I want to get back into Left 4 Dead and like be able to qualify as good for it again. Just like relive that the glory days of when I was like 14.
I mean, my
Sorry,
opinion
sir,
of
you
it
couldn't
is
buy that game at 14.
if you are willing to put in the time for any game, you can. I think anybody can get a world record for any game, basically.
Yeah, it's such a maybe inclusive is the wrong word, but it's just like it's so like equalizing as a because it kind of is a sport. It's so equalizing as a sport essentially that anyone can jump in and speed run something. It's not like to be the best swimmer in the world. Like you could be a good swimmer, but to be the best swimmer, you kind of have to have a certain body shape. Like ballet is like that too. If you're over like a certain height in ballet, you're basically guaranteed to never be the best ballerina ever. There's just no way. I love that Game's Done Quick and like speedruns. It's always like, I mean, like if you have hands and eyes and you can see and you can play the game, like you could do it. Like it's even after past that, like you could find a way. It seems like that community is so nice where they'd be like, we'll find a way to get this guy doesn't have hands. We'll find a way to get him to speedrun this fucking game.
Yeah, I find in general that most speedrunning communities are really great and supportive. Like, especially FF, this is the Final Fantasy community. I have to give a big shout out to them just because of how receptive, how helpful they've been. I would not have made the progress I made in this short amount of time I did without, the community. I basically, Petra Estrica, I believe that's how you say your name. I probably butchered it. We just call her Petro. But she was like is my mentor, basically. A lot of what I learned, she taught me. So
that's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, it's funny that's so different to like if I meet somebody and they're like, I'm a Twitch streamer. I like my first question is like, what do you play? And they're like, oh, you're interested in what I'm doing. I'm like, no, I want to know what you play because I want to know what kind of person you are. Like, I'm a Twitch streamer. What do you play? Fortnite. Great. I'll never talk to you again. I play Rainbow Six Siege. Awesome. I never have to meet you again as a human being. I know exactly who you are now. It's funny that speedrunning, like when people are like, oh yeah, I'm a Twitch streamer. Like, what do you do? I stream speedrun games. I'm like, you seem like a good person. I want to talk to you. Like, there's something about that community is so different to what I view Twitch streamers as.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I'm probably in a bubble, but I think like too much attention is drawn to the really toxic streamers, and and then you got the streamers like Alinity showing off parts that aren't meant to be seen on Twitch. And
I mean that's normal in so many things. I mean, I feel like it works. Instagram. I mean, remember that? Who the hell was that one model? God, that had that sold the bathwater, then disappeared off the face of the earth, kind of.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, she kind of disappeared too. I don't think she's really like active anymore. I
think she went to jail or something, or she got into some legal trouble, if I remember correctly.
Is that real?
Yeah, I don't know if she's in jail, but I think she did get into some.
Yeah, because I think she spray painted somebody's van or something.
Yeah, she got like a ban for a while for.
Okay.
Yeah, she. I mean, like in terms of like things that people have done on the internet, it's not the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say like
worse.
even her bathwater product was like she got into some legal trouble over that too, just in terms of like safety risks.
Yeah, there's got to be some kind of health concern over that.
Yeah, and dummies that were drinking it, so that didn't help things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But speaking of speedruns, I also see on your list that you also played Final Fantasy V and are number 3 right currently as of this date right now. That's pretty damn awesome.
Until I beat it.
Final Fantasy V is like the polar opposite to Final Fantasy IX in terms
It's also
of
a lot
run.
shorter. Only 3
Yeah.
hours and 46 minutes compared to 8 hours. And
I mean, the key to that is there's a step route. So I could go into detail if you guys want, but basically, if you take a certain amount of steps a certain way, you avoid almost every encounter.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's
okay, that makes sense though, because the way that the old games are, like I played Final Fantasy V. It took me a lot longer than 4 hours to beat it, but that's a long game too. There is so much to that game.
How do you?
Well, a lot of that game is there's a lot of side stuff to do end game. Like the end game for Final Fantasy V is amazing, and we just skip over all that, which is it's still a fun run, but like definitely that game is very underrated in my opinion.
But my other question,
how do you,
oh
I
wait,
was just thinking like the step count thing is crazy to me. Like I guess did Sony must have gone in and like looked at the code and specifically noted that like this many steps in this area is needed to like spawn enemies. Like I don't even know how you begin to go about finding that out.
Yeah, there's a tool. I think it's called Lua or something, but basically it reads RAM values. So the way encounters work in that game, so there's an encounter table. So there's seed generation in that game, but if you have a save file and then you load up a game from new game, the actual menu, you click on new game, it always loads the same seed. So you'll always have the same encounter table. And basically how it works is if you take it so there's a set value of steps you take, you'll get an encounter. So with the step route, if you follow the step route, you'll always avoid the same encounters and always get the same encounters. And then there's ways you can manipulate the step count by pausing in the overworld and stuff like that. It's actually really interesting. Learning about that was one of my favorite things to do.
It's so funny to me that like if you take like the top like 10 speedrunners of any game, that they probably know more about the game than any individual person that worked on it. It's like even the director. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I know like I can recite the code to you.
Yeah, Final Fantasy IX, like if you go onto the wiki, you can look at all the coding for all the bosses and stuff. You can we figured out, the community, not me, but because I wasn't part of the community, but the community figured out how to skip like a counter on one of the boss that normally would like do AoE damage, but they found a way to skip it.
Well, now if we do any of those games on the show, we have to have Blake on for sure.
Yeah, I do want to do Final Fantasy someday, but that's way down the road. And we'll
just do Final Fantasy 9.
Yeah, we can beat it in 9 hours. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll just do the step count.
Yeah.
There's no step count for Final Fantasy 9, unfortunately.
Oh, 5, sorry. But yeah.
We'll do 5.
5's a good game. That's a really good game.
Yeah, 5 actually would probably be a great one for you guys.
We're doing 6. They just don't know it yet.
Okay.
But 6 is coming because
I guess we just got told we're doing 6.
I haven't put on the show yet, but I fucking love 6. 6 is one of my all-time favorite games. Up with Chrono Trigger.
6 is amazing.
But another thing I do want to point out is I also see here that you did Castlevania Rondo of Blood, your number for the PSP, PS4, number 2. That's pretty cool.
That's not a very contested category. I think it's just me and 2 other people, but
there's 5, but still.
Oh, there's 5 people now? Wow, I'm actually surprised. It's a really great run, though. I love Rondo of Blood is like the most underappreciated Castlevania game because it bridges Symphony of the Night and what was it, Castlevania 4 and Symphony of the Night.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Well,
yeah.
I agree with you on Rondo, though. That is one hell of a badass Castlevania game. It's super underappreciated, like you said.
Yeah, like it just in terms of like it bridges the more straightforward gameplay of the classic series with the exploration of the the Metroidvania style ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see it being pretty easy to beat too. What was the time on that?
For world record?
Yeah, for yours.
His run is 21 minutes and 57 seconds. The world record is 20 minutes and 53 seconds.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, you can basically you just backflip. Backflipping in that game is faster than walking.
I love those little tricks in game. Any game that like has like the roll that is just like, even if I don't speedrun a game, if you add a roll that is like half of a second faster to get to an area, I will roll constantly. Yeah, I will never walk. I've never walked normally in any video game if I had the option not to.
Yeah. See, you'd be perfect for speedrunning. You're already trying to go fast.
I'll play like, well, it just doesn't even make me faster sometimes. I'm one of the few people that I just love Mass Effect Andromeda. I think that gameplay is really fun. And if you walk back and forth in that game, your legs just freak out and you look crazy. And I love doing that everywhere. It's like, it takes me like twice as long to get to the next area, but I look wacky walking down the side of the new Citadel.
And it makes you happy, huh?
It makes me happy. I play games specifically to make myself happy.
That's what they're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Well, I just asked, you said you're second for that one, but that one's not very contested. Which one do you think which speedrun do you have that you're happiest with, or like most proud of, maybe?
I mean, at this point, I would say Final Fantasy IX, just because I don't know. Learning to run that game kind of coincides with some big life changes that were happening in my life. So at the time, it was kind of like an escape. So I have like a very like warm, fuzzy feeling about the game, and just like like I said earlier, the amount of progress I've made in the short amount of time, because I haven't even ran it for a year. It's just, I'm really proud of the amount of work I put into it, and the fact that at least I think I am, in some kind of contention for world record.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
Not
you're
that far off.
to have only done it for like a year and you're sixth. That's really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
6 out of like 90 different people trying to do it.
Yeah.
And also the thing with runs is that you also like the top time for Final Fantasy 9 was 6 months ago. The second time 12 months ago. Third time 3 years ago. And your time is number 6, and you only done it and you got it 3 months ago. So I mean that ain't bad at all. I mean, I know with speedrun things change over time where people learn new tricks and learn new strategies, but still.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing with Final Fantasy 9 is that the amount of resources available to a new runner is crazy. So obviously this is taken away from my accomplishments, but I mean, it's the truth is that the amount of resources available to new runners is so much greater than it was even a few years ago. Right. My good buddy Mutsky actually he put out a guide, and that's how I learned the run initially. Is he has a really in-depth guide. So if any of you guys want to get Excalibur 2, you can just follow this guide, and it's basically free.
I like that's like my favorite part of any stream is like that it's almost never just one person. It's usually like a person and several friends, and then people in like Twitch chats, and it's like everybody is working together with all this information that has been built up over years. Mm-hmm. It's like it's so community driven to get to this point where it's almost like, yeah, you're number 1, but the whole point was to get the fastest time. Just have a fast time on record and just get that number down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
so cool.
Realistically, this game could probably be pushed down to like an 835.
That's crazy.
Damn. It's not that far off from that. 839 is the record. I mean,
yeah, it's obviously requires god tier amounts of RNG. But
it'd be amazing to see like, and well, I'm sure like it'll be a thing eventually one day. Maybe not officially like Olympics based, but it would be so funny to see like as it's esports have become so much more popular than they were even 5 years ago. Like the fact that esports are just on TV now is, I think a lot of younger kids, especially, not necessarily take it for granted, but they just don't realize that like 10 years ago, we didn't talk about esports. It was like, I did esports when I was a teenager, and it was still like embarrassing that I did that back then. Like I wasn't making millions of dollars. Like it'd be so cool to see like at some point a worldwide Olympic level, like national thing of like, oh, we've got the American speedrunner and the Russian speedrunner. And we're going to play Mario.
I think we'll get there someday.
Probably. I
mean, for the longest time, like you were just saying, gaming was not regarded highly by people. It was like nerds that played games. Like, that's kind of, and with our current situation, it's like, gaming's a good thing. Like it wasn't for the fact that like in my job situation, I'm like, man, I'll be okay. Like I got my games, I got a podcast to work on. I'm good. Plenty of things to do.
Well, I remember telling people like when I did the like Left 4 Dead tournaments, like even back then, I'd be like, I'm pretty good at Left 4 Dead, and they'd be like, that's cool. I mean, I'm really good at that. They're like, yeah, whatever. I'm like, I did tournaments. So we got to like 4th place in national tournaments, and they were like 4th best in the nation. They were like, yeah, whatever. It's just a game. I'm like, all right, I'll just go cry.
I mean, speedrunning is becoming huge. One of the biggest, Super Mario Bros. Speedrunners in general, Grand Pooh Bear. He's sponsored by Red Bull now.
Damn.
Yeah, that's crazy.
He's cool to watch though. I've seen him in Awesome Games done quick.
Oh yeah, Grand Pooh Bear is actually the reason I got back into streaming. He's one of my, like, out of any big streamer, he's like the only one I really watch. The really big ones.
It's amazing to me that anyone's still like, yeah, there's like still gatekeepers and there's always a minority in communities, but when there's like gatekeepers like, oh, I did this before it was cool. I always hate the idea of being one of those people. It's just like, no, like we saw this shit become mainstream and now everybody watches it and we could just all talk about it together. How awesome is that?
Yeah. I'm the same way. Like gatekeeping is just so stupid because you're just nerfing your community.
Yeah. Just the amount of people that are like, we're like, oh, you want to talk about like, oh, we'll do like, I talked to a kid I know from school, who like we still talk about like some speed runs. He does some streaming and we'll talk about it all the time. And other people that are like, oh god, you just talking about video games. I'm like, it's 2020. Like, this is the way the world is now. Like, we're gonna talk about video games, and we're gonna do it for the entirety of our friendship.
You remind me of a funny story that I haven't said on here yet. Like back when I was in middle school, a friend of mine that I knew up until I moved in 2006. So when I graduated high school, we met because we had a show and tell in 3rd grade, and I brought strategy guides as my show and tell, and that's how me and him found out we both liked games and became friends. He turned out to be crazy. I found out later, but that's a whole other part of the story.
Well, that's the whole reason. Like Sam and I are friends. Sam, a previous guest on the podcast, who I think will be on next week too. Where like the only reason really that like we became friends is I was playing Minecraft on my laptop in our community in our school dorm freshman year, and he walked out and he's like, "Is that Minecraft?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Let's be friends forever." I was like, all that it took. Which is always great because like that's how it worked when you were like 5. Like this kid lives next door to me. He's my best friend. Why? Because he lives next door to me.
And he has a Super Nintendo.
Yeah. What do you know about him? Nothing.
One last game I want to mention that I see on your list here before we start wrapping this up. I see it. You played Parasite Eve. Have a run on that one.
Yeah, Parasite Eve is a fun run.
Love that game.
I love that game also. The run is a little too static for me, and I mean that it's not very RNG heavy. I like the games with a lot of randomness because it keeps it fresh. It's different every time, and like that's a great run, and it's an amazing game. But it's just not my type of run.
Yeah, it's like I imagine games like that don't have a lot of randomness to it. They're almost too technical, or maybe like surgical is a better word, or it's like I imagine like a Minesweeper speedrun would be not that interesting because it's so based on just like very obvious numbers. There's no surprises that could happen.
If a game doesn't have a lot of random elements, it's probably like you're just playing the same experience every time, trying to do something just a little bit faster, I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, some people like that, and that's fine, but I like, I'm not the kind of person that can just like play the same thing over and over and over. It just gets really boring to me.
I can understand that.
I'll have to bring you on when we eventually do Parasite Eve 2.
We're doing that in like 3 weeks.
Okay. Well, then Parasite Eve 3, if there's a 3.
There's the 3rd birthday.
Okay.
I've never played
nobody
that
runs. By the way.
In the community, it's referred to as the turd birthday.
Oh.
I looked up like, I wonder what the runs are. There's runs for Parasite Eve 1 and 2. Like, there's only a couple runs at all for the 3rd birthday on here. There are not many.
A lot of people like to pretend that game doesn't even exist in the community. So.
Is it really that bad of a game?
I've never played it, but apparently so.
It's going to be on the show at some point. Just
in my experience, games like that, Mike puts on the show, and then he turns to me and he goes, "All right, defend this piece of shit."
It worked.
And I have to find some way to like make a point about it being good.
Well, I mean, I want to finish. There's certain... Next year, I'm going to try to start wrapping up a few series, and Parasite Eve, one of the series we need to wrap up since there's only 3 games in it.
I like how you asked me to do like Iron Man 3 because you're like you'll say nice things about Iron Man 3.
I thought you said you liked it.
I like aspects of it, yeah. I'm probably one of the few people that could say like I enjoy that movie because of so and so and so.
So, all right. Any last things that you guys want to ask Blake?
Yeah, good question. What games? Do you have any games that you like want to speedrun? Very like battle games that you've been thinking about you just haven't touched yet?
I mean, whenever I'm gonna grind Final Fantasy IX until I get world record at this point, I think. But my plan afterwards is to learn Chrono Cross.
Oh, really?
The bastard child of amazing game.
I love Chrono Cross.
It's a good game. It's just not when you compare.
Yeah, I mean, you can't compare it to Trigger is the thing. Too many people try to do that, and obviously, if you compare that game to Chrono Trigger, one of the best games ever made, it's not going to hold up.
Yeah. Well, I guess that is a good question too, because if there's anything that you end up being very adept at, then we can always have you on the show for it if it's on here too. So, yeah.
It may be better than getting like an
come back on.
Better than getting an actual developer on. We can talk about like the code. Well, if you notice the frame rate here changes slightly if you look at the ground.
All right. Any last things? We should introduce what we're going to be talking about next week. Otherwise, because there is no shelf or box. I didn't ask her any questions because I didn't know what to say. So
yeah, Blake's a great guy. I'm going to put him on my shelf.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're gonna put the
there's no way to do
the concept of speedrunning is going on my shelf.
I mean, technically, Awesome Games Done Quick would go on my shelf. I watch it a lot.
There you go.
So yeah, there's no shelfer box, unfortunately. There's no way to do that.
I'll put every excited cheer when somebody realizes that they've beat the record. I'll put that on my shelf because that's always just the most like heartwarming thing to watch. Is somebody realizing that they've done well and just enjoying it.
I will probably cry when I break the record.
I don't know how anybody
That's
doesn't.
awesome.
Like when you see any athlete like win like they break a world record in the Olympics or like they even just getting like first place. I don't see how they aren't just all crying. I would be bawling my eyes out. It's like, oh yeah, let me just humbly accept this victory. I'd be freaking out. I'd have like I'd be like that the meme of the guy getting third place, like popping open champagne. That would be where I would at. I'd be like, I worked so hard. Fuck you all. I'm going to celebrate it. Not a very humble victory. I'd be like flipping off the other like runners, like, fuck you. I did it. I'm the best. I'm the best curler of 2024.
All right. Stu, why don't you introduce what we're talking about next week?
Yes. So we mentioned a couple of times our playthrough of Stalker Shadow Chernobyl. Next week, we are finally playing the prequel to that series, Stalker Clear Sky. A fun game that Mike and Stefan started way too early and have already beaten.
Stefan hasn't, I don't think. I have.
You're close, Stefan, if you haven't beaten yet.
I'm a little over halfway, I think, but I have a lot of things I want to say about it.
We'll say that for next week.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one.
Next week will be a long episode, I'm sure.
That might be the longest. It might be the longest between us playing a game and playing a follow-up to that game. Because we've done other Silent Hills, we've done other Resident Evils.
I think there's other stuff. It's been a year.
I think it's been a little over a year.
Not by much, but yeah.
Oh, it'd be fun to go back into that series.
Well, we'll finish off Stalkers. Only got 3 games, and I know you're gonna put Call of Pripyat on there at some point. So
it's gonna be on my list for next season. Not gonna lie to you.
So
and then I might immediately put Metro on there too, just because that's like basically the same series.
Nice.
I've always wanted to play Metro, so you know what? I'm cool with it.
I'll put Metro on there to make it up to you, Mike, because Stalkers are very unrefined, raw games that I love, and Metro is just it's the polar opposite in that it's the most refined, like well-made game out there.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah.
I bought it 3 times and never played it, so I'm like, you know what? I need to freaking play that game one day. So
it's like
I'm
the
okay
difference
with that.
between like a Jackson Pollock painting and then like a perfect Da Vinci painting.
No, I bought it on 360. I bought it on PS3. I bought the Redux version on Xbox One. I bought the Redux version on PC. So maybe one day I really should play it.
Yeah. You're really supporting these developers.
But just when you play it, go back to your 360 version. Don't play the new one.
I'm playing PC.
Yeah.
But I just kept buying it. It just because I'd get it cheap, and I'm like, hey, okay, I'll throw it in the collection. I have a gigantic collection that I can't wait one day to put on shelves and actually look at it again. But that's another thing.
Mike checks like every single day to see what games are on sale where, to the point that we'll get messages like once every other day. It seems like where Mike's like, this game's free right here.
Oh yeah, I keep track of all the Epic free games and everything that's free because with the way that we do the show, you never know what's going to be on it. So why not grab it if it's free?
I imagine your Steam list is like 6,000 games.
No, I didn't get into Steam until last year. I think when you made me play Stalker or when we started playing
really?
PC games.
Stalker was your first experience with Steam?
One of my first, yeah.
Jesus.
Okay, Stalker was my first-person shooter on a computer. That doesn't count Doom or something.
That's a very interesting. I should just say like fuck everything else and say like we're gonna play like Rainbow Six Siege or something. Like, all right, you play like a modern shooter that's well made.
We're playing Halo. Does that count?
That counts.
Okay, I think we should wrap up this show. First, I want to thank everyone for listening. If you enjoyed this, which of course you did, please let people know. Send out a tweet.
Enjoyed this.
Make a Facebook post. Let somebody know. And also, if you're still listening, we are doing a giveaway next week, which I will go more into in the beginning of next week's episode. We have a giveaway coming up. So if you're still listening, there's a giveaway coming up for a Steam game.
Which we've totally already planned. We know exactly how we're doing it.
I have ideas. So also, please follow Blake, Abomination 1212.
Yep.
Okay, on twitch.com, there will be or not Twitch, there will be a link in the show notes, so just click there if you want to see his stuff, which of course you do. And also, give a quick shout out to our awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Bulby, aka Mike Stoney from the ZP Bite the Bullet, song to Cool Kid Squad. And we also do tons of different episodes. We have tons of games we have covered, so if you do, so definitely check those out. We also are still in the process of covering the MCU movies, and Iron Man 2 will be going out this Friday. I'll be uploading that one, so that will be out to you guys to listen to as we're slowly moving our way through those movies. So definitely check those out. Check out all our comic episodes we keep releasing. And we're actually going to be going to 2 comic episodes a month starting next month. 2 comic episodes for you.
Woohoo.
Because me and Stefan have been cranking that things out during this coronavirus like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Yeah, I've noticed because I process the episodes. So I'm like the other day, you were like, by the way, there's 2 more episodes for you to process. Like, fucking how? Like, where are these coming from?
By the way, there are 2 more in the drive.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So there's gonna be 3 more in a second.
I assume there's always 3 that I have to do.
Yeah, I keep recording. But all right, I want to thank everyone for listening. Thank Blake for taking time out to join us, and we will see you guys all next week when I curse Stu about playing Stalker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta go fast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, I assume we'll all be following you now to keep an eye on your Final Fantasy IX runs.
Well, I appreciate it.